Are you ready? Stand by.
Welcome to the Three Gun Show, brought to you by Armalite Rifles, LAG Tactical, and Breda Shotguns. I'm your host, Dave Hartman. My guest this week is Team Breda and Team HK shooter Sean Burrows. And in his personal life, Sean is a marketing consultant for mid-sized corporations, startups, and venture capital firms. If you're new here, the Three Gun Show is a weekly podcast that is all about practical shooting. I shot my first three-gun match in 2011 and completely fell in love with it. Since then, I've shot USPSA, practical shotgun, two-gun, and PCC matches. I even have rimfire and precision matches on the schedule for 2018, but I always come back to three-gun as it is a sport I am most passionate about. The Three Gun Show is my way of giving back and introducing new people to the sport while sharing the hard-earned knowledge of world-class shooters. There are over 180 hours of interviews with top competitors across a multitude of disciplines. Each week we discuss topics such as gear, technique, training, mental game, and we joke around and laugh along the way as well, especially when we discuss match travel stories. If you like this type of podcast, be sure to subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. This podcast is brought to you by Breda USA, Italian shotguns that are the best in the world. And this is a shotgun tech tip from Team Breda. Hey, this is Dave Hartman from the Three Gun Show, and I'm with Josh Tarrant of Team Breda, and we are going to show you a shotgun tech tip. Josh, what do you got?
All right, today I'm going to teach you guys how to do an emergency reload or a bolt lock reload. You have fired your last round, your gun's gone empty. You don't want it to be empty, you need to get it back in the game. So what you're going to do is immediately get the gun in your loading position, draw your shells, close the bolt, perform your reload, trip your release, rack it, back shooting.
And that's your tech tip for today from Josh Tarrant of Team Breda. Check out Breda's B12i 3-gun ready inertia-driven shotgun at bredausa.com. That's B-R-E-D-A. This podcast is also brought to you by LAG Tactical. I've been using LAG mag pouches and holsters for years, ever since James Casanova introduced me to their Nova holsters and their first-generation competition mag pouches. They have a new design for mag pouches out now in the MCS, the modular carry system, which features a two-piece design and fits a wide variety of pistol mags as well as different brands of AR mags. I got to see the prototypes in action when Scott Green won the Lucas Oil PCC Championship, and I'm excited to run them myself. Check them out at lagtactical.com. In this episode, Sean and I perform a one-year follow-up to one of the most popular episodes in the history of the podcast. That's episode 113. You can check it out at threegunshow.com/episode 113. And we cover what's been working for brand ambassadors on digital marketing channels like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, who's been killing it, and what to focus on for 2018. These kind of topics can make you more valuable as a sponsored shooter or a potential sponsored shooter, so enjoy this one with Sean Burrows. Sean, welcome back to the Three Gun Show.
Good to be here, Dave.
It's good to have you, man. So we are in the exact same spot we were last year at SHOT Show, and we are down one person. Ruben's over there doing business, doing deals in the Vortex Optics booth, and we're here today to do like a recap of the podcast that we recorded last year at SHOT Show. And for those not familiar with it, there should be very few, because it's actually the second most popular podcast that's ever been on the Three Gun Show. Downloaded many thousands of times, over 10,000. It was the first one that had 5 digits.
It was the most popular episode for a long time, and
for a long time. Yeah.
Part of me wants to outdo that with this one.
All right,
but I'm also happy that I think you've upped your game with content on your show this year, and it's better than ever. And I'm glad you outdid it with content that actually has to do with shooting.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Like for a minute there, like I was kind of bummed about it, because it seems like it's indicative of a lot of stuff we see in Three Gun, of like the what's in it for me, give me kind of stuff. And I'm like, wow, the most important piece of content that I put out has been, based on social media, and the idea is to market yourself better. But you and I have had many discussions on this before.
Right,
And
maybe shooting 3-gun should be the part that's in it for you?
yeah, exactly. But, social media is a big part of that. It draws new people into the sport. It brings new eyes to what we're doing, shows responsible gun ownership and stuff like that. So if we can show people how to better craft a message, then that's definitely still a win.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, if it wasn't for social media, I never would have known what 3-gun is.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah. We wouldn't know each other.
Right. Not only that, but even in your early interviews, you have people that say, "Oh, I saw a YouTube video and said I want to do that."
Yeah.
Jesse Tischhauser comes to mind.
Me too. That's how I
he
started.
does a little bit of social media, yeah. So it's a tool. It doesn't inherently possess good or bad attributes. I feel like in the gun world we've heard this before.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
So, well, look at your game. I remember the conversation we had about Dave. You should do stories, and
Instagram stories.
Do you remember what you did to protest Instagram stories?
No, I don't.
I don't want to work that hard to produce a piece of content that's just going to disappear in 24 hours.
Yeah. So that is a real thing, because with the 3-gun show, like I put so much work into the podcast. With the videos, the small amount of videos that I've done, I put so much work into that. Then why would I want to create something that is only a few seconds and then disappears after 24 hours? And that was a serious concern for me.
And so let's talk about stories. I guess it's jumping the gun a little bit, but I had this conversation with Mo Shaw 2-3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about it, and he had the same concern. He didn't want to put a whole bunch of work into stories in order to just have it disappear.
Right.
That just seems like a lot of work. And so
and I think that's a natural thought to have.
Right. Well, I gave the example then, like, what's the point of live fire practice? I don't want to shoot all that ammo that's not at a match, because then I'm just wasting ammo that's not going to, I don't know, put holes in paper that counts and knock down steel while on the clock.
Right.
And
I think you're getting at this, but that is the perfect analogy, because it gave me more confidence in doing videos, in doing other sort of content, because it's like you said, it's like live fire practice.
Right, exactly. So, for example, before social media, when you'd run into somebody and you say, "Hi, Josh." Josh Tarrant is just out of frame, if there is such a thing as out of frame in the audio world. And when he said hi back. Tomorrow, we're probably not going to remember that unless we listen to this episode. It's been captured and recorded forever. But in normal circumstances, we have all sorts of conversations that disappear.
Yeah.
So there's an element to human interaction that isn't supposed to be infinitely recorded and permanent. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the appeal of newer social platforms such as Snapchat, and then now Stories, which is just because Zuckerberg got rejected by Snapchat to buy him out, that hadn't been available in social media. So it needs to be approached differently than, say, the post that you take a really long time filtering your face and making sure you've got that six-pack and while posing for your gun in your bikini. And it's meant to be a different kind of content that do you remember how I justified Stories to you?
No, I don't.
It disappears, so you don't have to put as much time into it. It's supposed to capture the goings-on of the 3-gun show, behind the scenes, what you're doing. Mm-hmm. If people don't want to watch it, people don't want to watch it. But it's different than the permanent or evergreen posts that are meant to just kind of exist and be browsed for in perpetuity until you delete it, right?
Well, and I've experienced some really cool things that have come from the Instagram story as well. Like I've had way more connections with people that follow the 3-gun show on Instagram via the story than through normal comments on posts out there. Because comments with posts out there, I'm happy to respond to everything, and I do. But it's a comment on a post, right? And so they know that someone else is watching that, and they know that I'm watching that, right? And so now they have to stand up in front of the classroom and speak.
Right.
Whereas on the Instagram story, it's private. It's like a one-to-one connection with Dave, and generally my story is either some cool gun thing that I'm doing, or or me talking to the camera, which also creates a connection, right? So now you have that one-to-one connection. And because of that, like I met James Leffler and Dustin Sanchez at JP Rifles. And so when I was up in Minnesota, we connected and went and visited JP, did a bunch of podcasts there and things like that. Made some really good friends from that. But that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't done the Instagram story.
Right. And two, it on an algorithmic level, it actually creates more awareness of your overall presence and profile, because your face is showing up consistently at the top of the Instagram screen. And really, the only thing I care about in social media, I don't care if it's Instagram or Twitter maybe would become big again someday, or whatever platform that hasn't been invented yet. If the attention is there, I'm going to go there in order to get more of it, because the attention is the asset. People's time, people's focus on what it is I'm doing, and that's how I become an effective ambassador to the sport, the companies that help support me, and building my own brand, whatever this Sean Go Boom thing is that I'm building.
Right. So let's so we kind of got off and running and talking about things that have been working, but let's recap what we discussed last year, and then let's see if we can identify people that are doing it well. So first, if you haven't heard that episode, it's episode 113, 3gunshow.com/episode 113, and Sean is in that, Ruben Alexson from Vortex is in that, I'm in that, and it's basically 1 year ago, and we discussed everything social media as far as 3Gunners and how we can better represent ourselves and the brands that help us on social media. So first of all, go listen to that. Download the extra video, the Instagram stage plan that's associated with that you can find in the show notes for this show, and then you'll be all caught up. Right.
So for those of you that don't know and are just finding this, the Instagram stage plan is a supplemental video basically showing people how to set up their Instagram profiles and what to do on Instagram, how to divide up their time, because if you get into it, it can suck you dry and then burn you out and you don't want to touch it. And how to do it effectively, right? The episode itself was more big picture, like what do companies expect from shooters? What should shooters expect from companies? And it was more theoretical. And so I wanted to give something concrete to supplement the actual episode.
Right. And what's cool about that video that you created is you actually do the screen flow thing where you can see what you're talking about. So you like cut to the iPhone and show exactly examples of things that you're discussing in your talk, which is really helpful, especially if you're not like a auditory learner.
Exactly. And the visual, you go here, then you do this, then you do that, is really helpful.
Also, if you're not an auditory learner, you're probably not listening to this podcast.
It's quite possible. It's quite possible, Dave. Good point.
All right. So what are some things that that you've seen people doing that, like, oh, that person definitely listened to? Because, again, so many people listen to that podcast. Several hundred people opted into the email list to get the video. And it's fun watching the names of people that have opted into that, because you're like, okay, these people get it. These people want to be high performers. So what have you seen from the community that you can directly attribute to the content we put out last year?
Well, as it rolled out, I saw an immediate influx of people direct messaging me saying, thanks, that was really helpful. Don't know what was really helpful for most of them, but I'm grateful they're grateful. And then the people that went to the trouble to actually watch the 12-minute video or whatever it is on all the how-tos, they reached out to me like, hey, I've been doing exactly what you said, and it's working. Some people, like, I hit 1,000 followers for the first time, and then other people are like, look, I set up my profile just like you said, or and so there was.
Well, it's like 3Gun. There's all various levels, right?
Well, yeah. There was a lot of motivation. Like, I saw Keith Garcia do a drill. I'm going to dry fire for one whole day, right? And then there's the drop off. But I'm not saying that's necessarily bad. One of the things we discussed in episode 113 was deciding if being sponsored is right for you.
Right.
Are you willing to do a work? If you remember, I compare it to a transaction. You can get gear and go to a match by just spending money, or you can do another type of transaction by offering value. And that value can carry a higher currency amount than you maybe have in your bank account or your salary in order to do more in the sport. And if that's the case, you can trade time and effort for gear or match fees, whatever it might be, in exchange for whatever your sponsor's doing to support you. And what that can do is can create the opportunity to take your shooting to the next level. It won't make you a better shooter, but
yeah, it's all opportunity. It's the work you want to put into it.
Right.
And
maybe some people discover that, oh, wow, you know what? I'm just going to ask my boss for a raise.
Yeah. Well, because there's really no free lunch, and that's what people have to eventually learn for themselves is like, we're staying next to Vortex. Take that as an example. I'm not getting a free scope. It's like I'm getting a part-time job to promote Vortex to pay for that scope.
Yeah, sponsorship's not free.
No.
Like if you're a business owner and you want to sponsor a television program, you got to pay for creative for the ad, have the ad produced, and then you get to buy airtime, and they will show your ad during that primetime episode, right? So that's a sponsorship. So a sponsorship, it's another type of transaction.
And so what that company is paying for is the eyeballs that are on that television show in primetime. People seem to lose that sort of thing. It's like, well, they're not sponsoring it because they like Everybody Loves Raymond or whatever the hell the latest television show is. But
that's not one of them.
That's not one of them?
No.
Okay, I don't have TV. But they're not paying because they like that show. They're paying to get the eyes that show brings in, right? They want to have people bridge the gap between part 1 and part 2 of that episode with whatever Orville Redenbacher popcorn or, selling other goods, Ford trucks, Dodge trucks, things like that.
Right. I've always thought that the superfluous debates on Facebook during the off season amongst three-gunners could be a great media buy.
Yeah, those should be sponsored.
It brings a lot of engagement. Like if someone could figure out how to
some of the best conversations that we've had on the Three Gun Show have started from the shenanigans on Facebook, and that creates like a ton of listens and a ton of views. So yeah, it's definitely something out there.
So you're saying you figured out a way to monetize it?
Yes.
or at least benefit from it.
At least benefit from it for sure.
So when it comes to a sponsored shooter or brand ambassador, the terms are muddied in our world. And a sponsoring company, it's a bit more intimate than a media buy, but you, the shooter, become a media buy because there's no spectators at matches. There are new shooters at local matches, and you can show stuff off, and that's very, very important to being a good brand ambassador, behaving a certain way. I mean, you've had great episodes about all that stuff.
Yeah.
But when it comes
match
to
etiquette.
Yeah. When it comes to mass reach, there's a way to behave. There's a way to actually represent the companies that have put their logos and their brand in your trust, and so you are that TV show, I guess, is what I'm saying. I think about the Guinness Book of World Records. The only reason why that came up, why that was invented, was Guinness wanted people to stay in the taverns and keep drinking, and so they gave them something to talk about, so they'd order another drink.
Nice.
That was the whole point of the Guinness Book of World Records. And it's funny that in elementary schools, a century later, I had a third grade teacher that would always read at the end of the day, just before the bell rang, something from the Guinness Book of World Records. Like
I did too. It was like a time killer, must have been.
Yeah, and no one's thinking about Guinness, where that name came from.
No.
But that, the effort had passed. The book still exists, but and I wasn't drinking it when I was a third grader.
No,
so.
At least not Guinness. It's too heavy.
So, but the point is, you need to be that Guinness book. Whatever it is that holds that interest. Sometimes it's about being controversial. Not the best brand ambassador move, but,
Yeah, and I've noticed that as well. Like the controversy gets a lot of eyeballs, but it causes companies to shy away, and as does I guess Blue Comedy for whatever reason. Like, for the first year and a half of the podcast, we were completely clean. Like, I would remove any swear words whatsoever. But now I'm kind of let loose a little bit with that. We don't.
Shit.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I don't let it go to excess, but if someone drops a singular F-bomb or a singular shit in a podcast, it's not that big of a deal anymore. But I've found through feedback from people that are in the industry that do listen to the show that if we get off the rails a little bit too much and we kind of talk like we do when we're on the range, then it's like, hey, you need to reel it in a little bit.
You got junior shooters that listen to this.
Yeah, and we have junior shooters and ladies that listen to this. Granted, if I wanted to cater to the largest segment of listeners to the 3-Gun Show, I would cater to the 92% that are males between 25 and 50. Right.
Right.
So, but we have to consider those folks as well as the image that the show portrays.
Right. Not to say that ladies can't enjoy a good F-bomb.
No, and they do, but I was brought up not to swear in front of ladies. Kind of strayed away from that a little bit, but
right. Pray for Josh.
So, how do you craft like your message on social media, knowing that the world is watching? And then let's talk about some people that are doing it well.
Well, as far as content production, the stuff that's going to stick around should require more thought and planning in order to have a strategy. You think of your look and your feel, and you should have almost a graphic design houses always come up with a style guide when they put together a brand for a client. Use this font, use these colors. Here's a hex code for this color. It's very specific. So when they take it to a print house to make swag, signage, whatever, they know what they have to follow. It's a guideline. You don't need to be that strict for your own stuff, but there's a reason why people follow you. If you can kind of figure out what that is or what you think it is, then, kind of stick to it. Like, I'm a 3-gunner. I'm not going to post pictures of my cat.
Well, and
Unless you're the one cat 3-gun or whatever that is,
the
right?
3-gun cat guy.
You're right.
So I've noticed when looking at other Instagram accounts outside of our space that there are exactly the elements that you're talking about, especially when you start following photographers or artists. They definitely have a style all their own, and I don't see a lot of that in the 3-gun space. A lot of in the 3-gun space, even on Instagram, seems to be, and especially the stuff that I do, it seems to be like in the moment and more spontaneous kind of thing, not really curated content. As I've looked at like a ton of Instagram accounts. There's always those lists that come out, people that are killing it on Instagram and everything. If you're in the business sort of aspect of things, you think they'll hear those air quotes I just did?
Yep.
If you're in the business sort of aspect, you pay attention to that stuff, right? So my business is podcasting and social media. So not only do I read about the latest, HK firearm that's come out, but I also read things. Yeah, dude.
Okay.
I want to be able to relate to you and talk to you. And you always talk about that stuff that I have no idea what you're talking about. So
you call it HK alphabet soup.
Exactly. So the Scott Green,
just
everybody,
my armpit.
so
He's
hot
so
right
hot
now.
right now.
So with the curated content, we lost all train of thought because Scott Green's here.
No, I'm getting a Scott's shoulder massage just so the kids at home know what's going on.
All right, focus, baby. So curated content when we
so
talk.
Hot right now.
Scott Green is hot right now. When we talk about having that look and that feel to yourself, I can see it in these other accounts, but I struggle with personally like how to create that look and feel. Like, give me some like tips. Like, what should I be doing well here?
This is some of my favorite stuff. So
good. Take it and run with it, baby.
As far as classification goes, we talked about creating content for your stories. It just needs to be in the moment. It just needs to be like, this is what I'm doing now. This is the stuff that's going on now.
And I'm enjoying that, and it's working.
And there's Kerry Palmer.
Hey,
nice
everybody's
purpley
here.
shirt, purple Palmer. Kerry Palmer, for example, actually, all his stuff is purple. His username is Purple Palmer. When he puts on a match in Salt Lake and he sets up his own steel, the back sides of all the targets are spray painted purple.
Huh.
So
that's
he has like his
a brand.
thing. He literally has a brand. He has iPro that's purple tinted. He has purple Kydex mag pouches.
Right. Well, and so some of these other Instagram accounts I see, like they have that sort of like a lot of oranges, a lot of whites, a lot of yellows, or a lot of greens.
Jay Carrillo, right? His gear.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you need to pick a color, right?
No,
like
I understand, but when talk about like an overall theme, like if you go to someone's Instagram account, like their main page, and you scroll down, the theme,
right?
Like there's some that, even as a male who understands nothing about style, I can see that there is a theme here.
Right. Even my wife, Alicia, her shooter page that she's got going is black and white photos, except anything that's red in the photo is the color is maintained.
Right.
That's a awfully time-consuming process of filtering on Facetune.
I would imagine.
So, but she takes time. She does it. The content that she posts on her profile is very, very selective, and then she's storing stuff up all the time. She's not worried about the color filter on her stories. Just like, this is what I'm doing. I'm at the range. I got this match going on. I'm at SHOT Show. And she's kind of free from the constraints of the more permanent evergreen content to actually create a brand. And so when people find her on her story, she's doing something interesting, they go to look at her profile. Oh, it's beautiful. In fact, we just had a meeting that she set up with a company, and the owners absolutely loved her Instagram. They thought, this matches our brand so perfectly. Yeah. We were just looking at this stuff. We wanted to see it, and the lady asked her to be a brand ambassador. It was not something she was soliciting. This lady has no brand ambassador. She has a very successful business, a concealed carry line for women, and now she's working with Can Concealed Carry, I think it's called. And she saw it, and it fit exactly what she was going for, and two women bonded, and my wife's got a brand ambassadorship with a company. This happened less than an hour ago.
Right.
So the pathway there, so for those that are listening to this, is she's creating engaging content on her stories. She's out there commenting on people's stuff that attract people in. She used her Instagram as a resume, the more permanent, polished stuff. She's producing like one post a week, by the way. This is not some sort of like, I got to post every day. You set that pace, you set that standard, so your audience knows what to expect from you.
It's just like with the podcast. Every Wednesday, there's a podcast.
Right. She's storing every day. She's doing an evergreen post like once a week. I've noticed the bigger Instagram people have kind of slowed down on their evergreen posts. I haven't, but they have. And it's interesting that there's a big funnel now where you're out there engaging in the world, you're attracting people, and they come and see your nice polished profile. So that is the way to go. Content that's compelling and is evergreen. I keep saying that because it's not like Instagram posts used to be like, here's a selfie of me, here's my lunch. People aren't doing posts of their lunch anymore. They're doing stories of their lunch if they do that. I do that with sushi because I think it's pretty. It's
edible art. So as far as frequency, and you said a lot of people are slowing down some of the bigger accounts. One of the accounts that I've seen just freaking explode that is kind of counter to that is SLR Rifle Works.
Okay.
And they make a very unique receiver set. Their handguards are just handguards, but their receiver set is very unique and it's very attractive. And they make all kinds of cool parts for AK and stuff like that. But they will post 5 to 6 times a day or more. And even on Thanksgiving, like I was sitting there on Thanksgiving scrolling through my feed, and they were the only person that was putting anything out.
And that's why they do it at that time.
Yeah.
You're going to see it and get either overwhelmed and unfollow them, or it's such good content that you're going to go and engage.
Yeah, and I want to say like in the last year or so, they've increased like 20-some thousand followers, but they're putting out almost hourly content, throughout the workday of very attractive pictures that are not iPhone pictures, and they do have that style of like super close up on the details, maybe like a industrial kind of background and stuff like that.
So that's one way to do it. The problem with that is usually the time constraints that most individuals have.
For sure.
The other types of profiles.
Where do you get that many photos?
Well, the other types of profiles that I see do that are the ones that just curate and syndicate other people's stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So like HK, for example, there are HK fanboy sites. They'll just find anybody that's posted a picture of a VP9 or an MP5, and they'll just post if it's pretty, and they grow big. They become. In fact, I was meeting with the owner of 2A Media at a club last night, and we were talking, and he's a media buy now. He owns dozens of Instagram accounts around certain niches in the 2A space, and then companies can come to him, and within those repost things, they'll slide in a picture of whatever company's paying. And so it's just like selling ad space on a TV show.
And I've seen a lot of meme pages do that too.
Yep.
You know? That's my favorite thing about Instagram is the lulz. But so then I guess if let's break this down to like listeners, three gun listeners. What is the path to creating a style?
That's a really good question. You need to look at why you're shooting 3-gun. Look at your opinions. Watch your conversations you have with other people. How do you differ? Like, why do you prefer an 18-inch barrel? Maybe that's different. And then the 18-inch barrel is not your style. We're not gonna go with barrel measuring here. But there's something about your opinions that are different than other 3-gunners. Maybe you have a different take on the Second Amendment. Maybe you're not as cut and dry like Colion Noir is, right? His whole thing was just talking about gun lifestyle and his opinions on concealed carry and personal defense. I don't agree with half the stuff he says personally. So maybe it's something you have to say. Maybe it's what you've done to make your guns look a certain way. Maybe you have a unique way of dry firing. It's not one of these. We're
protecting the gear.
Oh, sorry.
I asked Sean to take a step to the left because a dude almost knocked over the tripod.
Didn't that happen with Kalani last year?
No, that was security telling us we couldn't record.
Oh, because you were a fire hazard because of the tripods.
Of the tripod, yeah. So we just proved that security guard right. I need to go apologize to him.
Go to the Venetian and look for him then. Or apologize to every single one of them.
Yeah, I will.
I just do an Instagram, do a story post.
Okay.
Blanket it out. So your style isn't any one of those things, but why you form these opinions, why you have these things. I mean, straight up, when I started this account, I was just starting to explore competitive shooting, and my part of my brand is kind of my story, watching my progression. Ruben here at Vortex was telling me that's one of the things he liked about it. But I already had opinions. I already found a carry gun that I liked. It was an HK. See where we're going with this? And so I'd put a lot through it. I'd gone through a lot of guns before I'd really settled on that one. Sold the other ones that I didn't really shoot anymore. And when I started to compete, I thought, well, I'm going to go with something that I know is dependable, and that's where I kind of started. And there aren't a lot of 3-gunners running HKs, and so that became at least a visually topical stylistic differentiation. And
you're known as the HK guy.
Yeah, well, Derek Giddings is Mr. HK, but that's another story.
Well, so what you're saying and the example you use with Colion Noir are examples of I have preferences and I have opinions, right? And I find that is rare in the 3-gun space because many people are more concerned about upsetting sponsors or rocking the boat, upsetting match directors, upsetting their fellow shooters than they are about having an opinion. And I'll give you a good example. Daniel Jurasic was on the podcast recently, and it's been, bar none, the most popular episode based on the back channel text messages, Facebook messages, and Instagram messages, everything I've got.
I love that episode.
It's great because Daniel's like, oh, here's my opinions. And he didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't water it down. He didn't say, well, some people might think. He's like, this is what I think. And that is what people like. If you try to please everyone, you will please no one. And Daniel didn't try to please anyone. He just said, this is what I think. And so many people have, again, text messaged me, sent me messages on Facebook, emails, like Daniel was spot on. And I tell them, like, hey, can you comment on the Facebook post for this? Or can you comment on the Instagram post for this? And they're like, no, I can't say that in public. And it's just amazing how
can't or won't, scared, fear of loss.
Scared is what it is. They're afraid that, Johnny Fab Holster Company will drop them if they're like, yes, I agree with Daniel. And Daniel didn't say anything super controversial. He just talked about his preferences in the sport.
Right.
But it's okay
where's the guy to find another Kydex holster company?
Yeah.
Where could they possibly be?
And I mean,
there I am with my opinions.
That's a great joke, but you're going off on a tangent. So focus. Colion Noir, he has opinions. Whether we agree with his opinions or not, he's not a wishy-washy type of person where he's like, maybe I'm just going to go with the flow this time. He has opinions, and he just says them, and that is what has created a following. So how then, knowing that, do we translate that into our social media message?
Well, if you're scared of losing a sponsor because you have an opinion, maybe it's time to revisit the overt and covert expectations with that sponsor. Mm-hmm. What kind of relationship do you have with him? Because it doesn't sound like a very good relationship.
No.
I know with my wife that I share my opinions all the time. And then she shares her opinions. And then when the voice volume comes down, we're happy. And there's no walking around on eggshells. There's no worried about, Are you mad at me?
Right.
Like, that's the way my married life is. That's the way I live with my business partners. I don't live with them, but that's the way I work with them. Mm-hmm. My clients, I had a business meeting for lunch yesterday, and I basically told them exactly how the relationship was going to be, and if that didn't work for them, then we probably couldn't work together. Mm-hmm. It's a potentially very, very, very big contract and a lot of money, but I know that I would be absolutely miserable if I didn't communicate this stuff up front.
Right.
So when it comes to running a profile, coming up with your opinion, one thing that you could possibly do is say, look, I've come up with this persona because it's actually me.
Yeah, and that's the easiest way to do it, by the way.
And reach out to the sponsors and say, hey, I'm going to be doing more posts like this. This is how I'd like to feature your product within the context of this style guide that I've got. Come up with a plan, right? And run it by the sponsors. Don't surprise them.
Right.
So communication, key to any good, healthy relationship is what it comes down to.
Yeah, very much.
And then I get DMs, questions all the time about all sorts of stuff regarding HK pistols especially and rifles. And I will answer people. Sometimes I'll do a live thing on Instagram just because I receive the same question 9 times. Mm-hmm. And as the following grows, the same questions kind of come. Or I'll do a YouTube video that just answers that question, offer my very specific opinions, and put it out there. And, what's happening. All right, here's an example. I started a YouTube channel mid-2017. I've got like 1,100 subscribers. It's growing. I'm not putting as much effort into it as other things, but I mainly did it to create videos to answer questions that I was getting all the time because I didn't want to have to answer them and type it out on especially Instagram.
That's how we choose content on the podcast a lot of times. Is like if I notice a pattern of people asking questions, then we do a show on it.
Go listen to episode 113.
Yeah.
Start your Instagram account. Right. And so I'm able to send people to that, but I offer my opinions. And I don't hold anything back. The little bit of history, the early HK shooting team, we're talking early 2000s, wouldn't allow their shooters to do any alterations to the guns. None. But they were also paid pro staff. So it was like, here are your guns, here's your jersey, here's your paycheck, go shoot. It's a different program now. It's here's some gear, have fun shooting, we'll cover match fees for this match and this match. It's not a paid salaried gig, right? And so but that gives us latitude to do more to our guns. And so I customize the heck out of them because they're great combat guns. They're not great competition guns out the gate, most of them. Right. And so, and then I wind up just tinkering with my carry stuff anyway because there's some cool stuff you can do. And there's, for the first time ever for HK, there's a lot of aftermarket parts and pieces that make them fun and slicker. And anyway, I will show everything I've done to these guns. I started with this, and I wound up with that. Here's why I did it. And I send it to HK. It has created a whirlwind of internal emails that I just learned about yesterday at SHOT Show when I was working the booth, putting in my time. And the national sales manager sat me and Alicia, my wife, down in a back room and just started asking all these questions. What if we did this? How about if we change this? That is completely uncharacteristic of HK. Anyone that's familiar with it, that is the exact opposite. It's more like, here's our newest gun, F you.
You suck and we hate you.
Right. And if you follow them on social media, they have a social media manager that plays on that false perception.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. I like following HK now. Used to be, meh.
Right. Somebody took a picture of an SP5K in the snow in December, and HK reposted it, and somebody said, well, if you bought it that way from HK, they'd probably charge you for the snow. And the social media manager for HK responded like, of course, we would take every opportunity to gouge you for every little piece that's on the gun. Right? Like, and so it's fun. It's good that the German execs don't know English, and they don't. But HK USA's become really fun. And so, but with that, we've got an amazing opportunity. Like, because I was offering my opinion and just answering candidly, with them, I wasn't going to ask permission.
Right.
I just said, here's a video. I put it up. If you need me to take it down, let me know. And it all just came to a head, and they're just like, look, we like this. We're going to start offering parts for people to have more capacity, like base pads and stuff, like to their magazines. We've been thinking about it. We've been going back and forth. For the first time ever, HK in the new Georgia factory has a Cerakote station, and there's a limited edition burnt bronze VP9 where they've Cerakoted the slide. 2 years ago, they didn't want the social media manager posting reposts of pictures of people that had Cerakoted their own guns.
Weird.
So you see the shift, right? So as a brand ambassador, part of your job is to work with being a pulse on the market and helping your company do better. You're out there interacting with them in a lot of ways. I asked Ruben last week, what more can I be doing for you? I'm always asking that. And he said, look, I'm not out in Salt Lake. I need to hear back from you requests, what people are asking for. What do they want? How do they want to change their optics or whatever? And so that's the one thing he asked from me. Everything else, you're doing great, Sean. We love you, blah, blah, blah. So when it comes back to like building your brand, kind of bringing it down to this particular subtopic, one, don't be scared, right? Like, oh no, you lost a gun lube sponsor,
right?
Like, well, good thing they gave you a decade's worth of gun. Right? Like, you can't be so scared. Like, you don't get scared to it's like when you first learned to shoot 3-gun. Remember when you were too scared to run with a gun?
Yeah. I do remember that. Well,
Nothing happened, though.
And I would say that, like you were saying, communication and expectations up front.
Be an adult. Yeah.
Being an adult, I was concerned, when I started about, super polished image and stuff like that. And that was the image that I started with. And it took me a while to find my voice and allow myself to joke with people and make fart jokes and things like that on the podcast.
I'd say you developed it. You found some things and you've developed it further.
I've always been big,
because
for sure.
Yeah, but you've also found things that work. You get feedback, you get endorphins. So I'm going to do that again.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's great. Like, people identify with me better when it's my personality versus when it's, I'm holding back that's what she said joke or something. But but what I've found is that and maybe I'm very fortunate to work with great people, but the companies that have chosen to work with the 3-Gun Show and vice versa allow me that latitude. They don't, monitor the bat channels and like, hey, Dave, you need to quit this, you need to quit this, you need to quit this. So, I do get positive feedback from a lot of the companies I work with,
And they tell you what they like about what you're doing.
We like this, and we like this, we like this. And then I use the positive feedback as like, okay, well, they must not have liked that,
Right.
So earlier I said that, I've gotten feedback of like, okay, well, you strayed a little bit too far in these jokes here. Cool. Now I know not to do that.
Right.
That sort of thing. But it's like, in all reality, that it's probably, not something I would want my grandma to hear anyway. So.
To quote James Franco from the movie Why Him? Oh, shit. You don't say fuck. If you haven't seen it, it's fun.
All right. I trust you.
One really good case study of what I've seen works with all these principles we've discussing is Josh Tarrant.
Yes. Josh has been putting out a ton of social. He's chosen Instagram as his primary platform. He still does do stuff on Facebook as well, but he has made himself an authority in the space, right? And he's a good ambassador for 3-Gun, and it's upsetting a lot of the people that aren't doing anything, which is kind of funny because if you're making people uncomfortable that they're not doing enough, you're on the right track. And Josh has definitely done that. And he's putting out.
I wouldn't say it's upsetting anyone of consequence as far as Josh's shooting career is concerned.
Oh, of course. It's the people that watch that and think like, well, I can't do that. That's what the deal is. It's the folks that don't want to get out and play in the game, right?
Or
the people that poo-poo.
Take time to talk about it to the people that want to get into the game. Like, it's not just about being a brand. It's about being a sport ambassador. I want this sport to grow. So one final story, and I think it'll round off this episode really well. Fort Benning, day before the first day, we're walking stages. Kid walks up to Josh and said, "You're Josh Tarrant.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get my picture taken with you?" You and Jerry Michalik are why I got into this sport.
Crazy.
Right? I mean, Josh is a hell of a shooter.
Yeah.
He's no Jerry, but who
right.
is?
Nobody is.
Right. So.
But that is the kind of impact that you can have with the social media medium, right? And you
look at his numbers. December 2016, he had 130 followers. As of today, he's over 8,000.
Wow.
13 months later.
That's crazy.
And he gives tips. He does live broadcasts of him dry firing.
Mm-hmm.
He's giving little tips on weapons transitions right now. And one of the big, you want to talk about fear. Josh was DQ'd on the first day of Fort Benning. It was the most spectacular disqualification I've ever witnessed or heard about. But I filmed it. And he was in this little sniper hide shooting moderate long distance at a moving target, and then you come running out of it, you're supposed to dump your rifle into a dump barrel, and then run about 20 yards and start engaging some pistol steel. And when he came running out, he somehow hooked his pistol, for those of you that haven't seen it, and his rifle went into the barrel and it went out, and both the pistol and the rifle wound up on the ground. Mm-hmm. It looks great in slow motion. And now,
scary, but
right. No one got hurt, and even Daniel Horner came out to look at it to see if there was anything that could be done. I'm sorry, man. It was very upsetting. It was the first day. It was the third stage of the match out of 12 matches or 12 stages. And he was done, but instead of pouting about it, he took the video that I carefully stitched together, the full speed and then the slow motion and then the super slow motion with an up close. So you can see the pistol flying out. It is kind of like he didn't even know what happened. I was watching it. I couldn't even tell what happened until we saw it in slow motion. And he posted it, and he talked about it. 2 weeks later, we're on our way to Hard as Hell, and we stop at a Dairy Queen somewhere in the middle of Utah, driving from Salt Lake to St. George, and we did a little boomerang of Josh holding two Dairy Queen.
Oh, nice.
Dairy Queen ice cream cones, and he drops both of them on the ground. And so the boomerang is the ice cream cones falling out of his hands and coming back in, and falling out and coming back in. You know, it was a story. Yeah, that part disappeared.
Right.
And so Josh's ability to be open about it. He brought a couple critics, but 99-1 had a lot of people that follow Josh, look up to Josh, and a lot of his peers say, wow, man, thanks for being open about this. It was devastating to him. Like, you could tell it bothers him.
Yeah,
even when
I
still
spoke to him on the phone just a couple hours after it happened, and he was very upset about it. But, you know, the thing is, like, it shows that authenticity. It shows Josh as a person. Josh is human. And, look, if this can happen to Josh, someone that you admire, someone who you come to every day for his tips and his tricks and things like that on his Instagram channel, it can happen to you. Let's see what we can learn from it.
Not only that, but you look at the cost of what it takes to even get to one of those major matches. $1,500, $2,000, depending on how you're living life while you're there. And you know, everyone gets DQ'd. It's easy to talk to someone about how to start learning how to quad load. It's another thing to say, you know, like, look, this happened to me too. Here's the video of it. And so he's got evergreen content there, and it's something a lot of people can relate to. And I told him he gained way more from that than if he'd won overall at that match.
Sure. So that's one post. And let's talk about, like, what he's doing together, or overall on his page.
Okay.
As far as, like, his strategy and stuff, because
he
probably
followed the Instagram 3-gun stage plan.
He's probably the number one example that has followed the Instagram stage plan.
He followed it to the T.
Right.
The biggest thing is engagement on other people's profiles. And liking and commenting outside of your own little world.
That was the number one comment that I got from people who listened to and downloaded the stage plan, is they didn't realize I should leave my page. They looked at it as just like a, here's me.
Well, if you could imagine going to a real social setting, this is social media, so the social laws apply. But if you were to actually go to a party and everyone was just yakking about themselves to no one in particular, it sounds like a weird sci-fi movie or a Twilight Zone episode.
But that is exactly what a lot of Instagram is, you know, but those are the people that are doing it wrong. Those are the people that have the small followings and are not. But taking that engagement,
2 extra seconds to say, wow, that was a great run. That is the craziest looking 2011 I've ever seen. How's the trigger on that thing? Whatever it is, answering, and then people. I mean, I say it in the video. I think I say it in the freaking 113th episode. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
It's true.
And that's how you show you care. I mean, this isn't some sentimental thing. This is just, hi, I'm a decent human being.
Yeah.
What you do, I find interesting.
Right.
We are both gun likers. I will like it with a heart and comment. I mean, it's really that simple.
Yeah, exactly.
He just did it in volume a lot every day. He spent, I would say, 80-20. 20% content creation, 80% listening and replying to other people's stuff on their own page. But then the other element is, if you have a voice and if you have an opinion that matches what you've been doing, then when they go to your profile and they see, like, wow, what he's talking about actually makes sense. And then the other thing is collaboration. So he has no qualms about shouting out and drawing attention to other shooters and reposting their stuff and saying, hey, take a look at so-and-so, did a great run here. And so that it's just a sense of community.
Yeah.
Being social, if you will.
Being social, yeah. And that, man, that's something I see so often in adjacent spaces. Like, the best example you and I always talk about is the fitness space, because there's so many people there that are doing amazing things and they're doing it right. But they always do the shout out to so-and-so, the shout out to this person over there. And like you said, there's hey, if you like stuff that I'm doing, check out this guy. This guy's doing other cool stuff, like our buddy Scott Green that we were talking about earlier. Scott's freaking hot right now.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah.
So I see it with I see it with a lot of people who get it. They're like, hey, you should go follow Scott Green. Like, this guy is someone to look at. and that's just like a way to help the community grow as a whole. Rising tide raises all ships, right?
Right.
And there's so many teams out there. Like there's a Vortex team that has just a ton of shooters. There's the HK team. There's like 5 or 6 of y'all. There's
8.
Used to be
most
the Cobalt
production guys and
no one cares about that. No, I'm kidding. There used to be like the Cobalt Connect shooting team, and the Cobalt Connect shooting team, Keith and Rick and Kalani and Nick, they did a very good job of that too, because they had like their 4 individual accounts, and then they would promote stuff also on their shooting team account. And there's that like multiple reaches and cross-pollination of audiences, and I think there's like a lot of potential for that in our little 3-gun space.
There is. Like even like people that don't shoot any of the same stuff or run any of the same gear I do, I'll shout out if it's a good run, because we both shoot 3-gun. Hey guys, you need to go follow whomever because look at this. That's why.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm not saying that you should follow or you should shout out someone just because you shoot with the same holster or whatever. But what I'm saying is that together you can be more than you are alone.
Insane. That was great.
Write that down.
We record it. We don't have to.
You get what I'm saying?
I totally agree. That was a really good way of putting it. That's why instead of expressing my true feelings, I made a joke about it.
All right.
I'm trying to be more open.
Jesus. All right, man. So we got just a couple minutes left here, and then I want to go sit down because I've been standing for 2 hours. Let's talk about some things that we can do better going forward. Obviously the promotion of other people who are doing cool things is one thing, but what are some like things to be doing now? And let's just pick our favorite program or platform, Instagram. What are some things to be doing now on Instagram, or what should we be doubling down on?
Giving the stories a try. Stories are kind of where it's at. Instagram's expanded their ad platform to stories, so I'm not looking forward to that hitting more. But there's a reason. That's where attention is going.
Yes.
So for some people, it's going to be hard to keep that front of mind. Like, well, I guess I need to talk into my phone again. But talking into your phone again gets attention and helps your sponsors out, and you like being sponsored and you like talking about that stuff. I mean, no one cares when you're going into the gas station to get a burrito, but
I care when Adam Maxwell does it.
Adventure's first stop.
Yeah, at the Maverick. Yeah, if you missed that one from Hard as Hell, Adam Maxwell discovered. What's fun is like introducing new things to Adam. He's great, but yeah, he discovered these giant ass burritos at the Maverick.
The mother of all burrito.
The Moab
breakfast burrito.
The mother of all burritos.
Since he can't come to Utah and attend a Maverick, I actually picked up a Maverick club card where you can get points.
Oh yeah.
So I'm sending him I sent it just before SHOT Show. Just sent him a little Maverick Adventure Club card. So now he's a member of the Maverick Adventure Club. thought he'd appreciate that.
But yeah, so that's a thing, let's talk about Vortex since we're here. We talked about this in the other interview we did, but
pizza oven.
Their friggin' pizza oven has become, by the way, you're welcome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Their pizza oven has become like a huge thing.
Thank you.
and you and I were talking about before. I was like, dude, if they had a pizza oven at SHOT Show, that would be a thing. People would want to come get their photo taken with the pizza oven because it's on their story all the time. Jimmy's always making cool, amazing things in the pizza oven. And
so they started with with a really crappy pizza oven, and it died because they try to cook unconventional things, usually every Friday in it, for those of you that don't know. And I think they cooked too much bacon in it, and the grease just fried the internal electronics or something. And so my wife was complaining. I remember this, that was her TV. We got 4 kids, and we don't really watch any TV, and so that's her entertainment was the pizza oven every week. That was her thing.
Me too, man.
And she loved it, and she was complaining about it. I'm like, well, let's buy them a pizza. Not that expensive, and they sponsor us. Like, it'd be a nice little gesture.
Yeah, it's like $40.
Right. So we got one. We sent it out, and Jimmy did this cranked up "I Will Always Love You" with Whitney Houston on YouTube, and did a story of that playing, and then zoomed over to the pizza oven, and they actually have a picture of the pizza oven that died that says RIP on the wall right next to the new pizza oven. And so, they did some cook-offs with JP Rifles and some other companies who can make this weird concoction. They just bring in like what's in the office cafeteria fridge that we can put in an oven. And sometimes they cook good meals, and others are experimental. And so I said, and then at Hard as Hell, Josh Tarrant, Amax, and I went to Walmart and we picked up pizza oven, and we had a cook-off. Jimmy called what it was going to be, some quesadilla concoction. He loves quesadillas, and so we answered it. And then, of course, the arbiter of who made a better one was Jimmy, and they won. But I think our story was fun. Like, we storied on the Instagram, Vortex 3 Gun Instagram, the whole shopping process, what we were buying. Amax was skeptical. Sean, what are you picking out? Why are we getting that? All the way to getting back to the Verbo, cooking the whole thing. And, and everyone's being tagged. And followers certainly came from that. And then figured SHOT Show's coming up in a month. I texted Jimmy, and I was just like, hey, after you suggested it.
Yeah.
Well, what if we just brought a pizza oven? We got the one left over from Artis. It was sitting in my garage in a box. Yeah, we didn't know what. It was $40 well spent.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Figured it'd be a backup to our oven if it ever went out. I don't know. And so we brought it, and Jimmy just right in the middle of the booth floor made a quesadilla concoction by just purchasing things from different cafeterias at different levels here at SHOT Show. Yeah. Bacon, cheese fries, and crispy chicken. It was a quesadilla
inception. It was a quesadilla inside a quesadilla inside a quesadilla.
And the cheese was fake, so I said, "Isn't this quesadilla deception?" And he said, "Well, it's not going to be a quesadilla rejection." We're just having fun.
Yeah.
And it was a blast, and it was cool to watch Jimmy actually create the pizza oven story live. He's like, it takes a lot more takes than you think, and
yeah. Well, that's another thing people don't realize is like how much time social media takes.
Right.
It takes a ton of time.
But it has taken off. It's made Vortex personable and approachable.
Yeah.
It has given them something that they can relate to their customers about, that otherwise they would be a cold, hard, institutional corporate entity.
Right. And now there's people that are there, and they eat food.
And if you've ever met anybody that works for Vortex, they're the nicest people. It's just like on social media. Jimmy is being Jimmy.
Yeah. Jimmy's the same dude, whether he's got an Instagram story on him or not.
Right.
Yeah.
And they've expanded that to their YouTube channel. They're doing longer form content. But what we're seeing here is this massive collaboration. And when we bought the initial pizza oven, I actually bought it without telling my wife, and that was something that was important to her. Why'd you get him a nicer one? I found a nice one on Amazon. I got him like a 3-year warranty, so if it breaks and they destroy it, they have 3 years to just like get it replaced. It was like $5 extra, right? And she thought that we should get a crappy one, and she actually found the exact crappy one they had.
Oh, no kidding!
It was like $20. I'm like, I thought we should get them something nicer. They can do more stuff. And so we had a real conversation about it. But then we decided, like the next day, we were driving to my sister's wedding in Reno from Salt Lake, and so we had a long road trip, and so we turned it into a fake argument between her Instagram and my Instagram, and tagging Vortex, and Vortex interacted with it, and so it cross-pollinated a lot of things. And we made jokes about the fact that we were going to Berkeley, and we're on our way through Reno, and we couldn't shoot, and we tied it all back into the lifestyle that our profiles surround. And this is quesadillas and pizza ovens. So thinking outside of the box, not just being opinionated, being a human, that's another really important thing.
Well, okay, so double down on the stories is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Don't not do anything else, but I would be more selective about the evergreen content on your just regular Instagram posts. Double down on the stories. You don't need to do one every day, but maybe you're doing stories every Saturday when you're going to matches.
Yeah.
When you're cleaning guns, when you're dry firing.
Man. Here's another person that's really doing it good is Ben McPugh.
Oh, jeez.
Ben McNew. His Instagram handle is Ben McPugh. He's freaking hilarious. And some of the stuff that he sends in Snapchat is hilarious. Like, you think you think he's funny on Instagram. Snapchat's amazing. But him and his buddy, I forgot what his buddy's name is. Sorry, buddy. But they did a driving to the match, like they called it a podcast, but obviously it's an Instagram story
Talking
thing.
While driving or something
like that.
that.
Like every 15 seconds, they have blah, 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 and they're just going back and forth. And it was so freaking funny. And the other funny part is they actually missed their turn because they were screwing around with the Instagram.
Sounds safe.
Yeah, exactly. But it was hilarious, and it was relatable. And Ben's a dude that I met and I shot with, and that is exactly Ben. It's exactly his personality, and he's letting that shine out. And for me, as one of his friends, it's cool to like. Okay, well now I don't really miss my friend that much because I can see him screwing around on Instagram, and then it shows all these other people how much fun even the part of going to a match is. It's not just the about the shooting. It's 98% of what we do is resetting and having fun and just BSing like that.
It's about showing a lifestyle. You're illustrating.
It is a lifestyle.
And if it's just like, here's a picture of my guns, here's me shooting real fast, here's a picture of my guns, here's me.
Right.
There's enough of that already.
Right.
So, yeah, adding your own style. I think we've hammered that home pretty
for sure.
well.
All right. Well, Sean, add our own style, double down on the Instagram. I think that's pretty much the big takeaways from the podcast here.
I think so. If you have any other questions, DM me, sean.go.boom.
There you go. And as always, thanks for listening to the show. And Sean, man, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for taking the time out from shot to stand here in the middle here and have all these people staring at us.
My pleasure.
Who's that? Should we talk to that guy? He looks important.
I got a Scott Green back rub. I'm not.
Thanks for being on the show, Sean.
Thanks, Dave.
Hey, before you take off, check out the show notes at 3gunshow.com for links to things that we discussed in the podcast. You can also sign up on Patreon as a 3Gun Show supporter or purchase 3Gun Show apparel. This podcast is also brought to you by Armalite. Through Armalite, I am able to get special pricing for listeners on their line of 3-gun rifles. They have a 13.5 and an 18-inch model, both with Armalite's patented tunable comp, Timney triggers, Luth AR stocks, and they're ready to go right out of the box. If you're more of a build-your-own rifle kind of person, I have a few of their competition handguards left in 12-inch and 15-inch sizes as well. So when you're in the market for a rifle or components to build your own, just email me, dave@3gunshow.com, and I will hook you up. Anytime you see me on the range, you can check out my rifle. I'm currently rocking the 13.5-inch Shorty 3-gun rifle with a Vortex Optics Viper PST 1-6 on it, which I'm really enjoying. Quick reminder that if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, subscribe in iTunes, Google Play, Podcast Addict, or wherever you get your podcast content, so you will always get the very latest. Thank you so much for downloading, listening, and subscribing to the show. I'm Dave Hartman, and I'll see you on the range.
If you are finished, unload, show clear.